All right, family. Hope all is well wherever you are in the world. Today's whiteboard fire training, sell it with story. How to close 347% more clients without all the high pressure selling. Now, wherever you are throughout this training, whether you are live or you are doing a replay, make sure you shout out where you're at. Make sure you talk about your business. Make sure you engage, because I will be going back through the comments, and it's about helping each other to grow, right? More impact, more income through sharing our story, being powerful communicators of our story, whether it's for our business or our brand, our personal brand, or it's to get a job, or it's to influence our team. Story, our ability to communicate is monumentally important. So make sure you crush the chat box, comment, engage, get something out of your time here, because we're going to cover something that is monumentally important: how to sell. But not just sell, right? Because we've all been in that situation, right? Where we get on the phone with someone who's selling something and they go in on us, right? They start using all type of fear tactics and pushing us. How do we feel when we're going through something like that? I don't know about you, but I feel a little manipulated. I feel like the person isn't really trying to help me. They're trying to push me into something. And I know you've probably been there yourself a time or two, right? The time and era of hardcore closing is coming to an end. We have to be able to align with people, connect with people, to build trust, likability, and connection, and then share a story. A story that doesn't influence or persuade or push, but a story that aligns with the person that we're speaking to. And when a story aligns with someone, meaning they see themselves in it, guess what they do? They sell themselves. And that's the power of story. Whenever you peel back the curtain and you look at a top salesman or sales lady, if we're going to be politically correct here, what you will find time and time and time and time again is the capacity to tell great stories. Stories that enroll the prospect into the journey. Stories that connect at an emotional level, not just intellectually. Facts and figures bring us to the table, but feelings cause us to sign on a dotted line. And that's what we want to tap into. Now, the stories we're going to go over, I really want you to stay to the end. I'm going to give you an opportunity to be able to get on the phone with me and talk about story selling with your team. How we can go in, train your team, whether you're a financial services team, real estate, accounting, it doesn't matter. If you have a team who is responsible for getting on the phone, connecting with people, and selling and closing, then this is a skill set that is indispensable, especially in today's era where relationships sell. Connection sells. Being trusted, liked, and connected with someone. TLC, write that down. TLC is what sells. And nothing creates trust, likability, and connection like a great story. So let's dive in. Make sure you engage in the chat box and ask any questions you have. I'll try to tend to those, but let's get on with it. All right, so if you've attended any of our whiteboard sessions in the past, last week or the week before, we went over this idea, right? The brand story. Let's go over it real quick because it's important. It's foundational to us being able to communicate our story, whether we're trying to sell a product or we're communicating with our team. It is foundational to us being able to communicate powerfully, right? And here it is. Brand, let me change color here. Brand is what? We talked about it. Brand is nothing but the ability to create feeling in someone, right? Feeling, not functions, facts, or figures. Brand is about emotional connection. And what is story about? Story is about transformation. It's a journey of transformation, meaning I start here, but I become altogether something new at the end of that journey. So when we talk about telling a great story, a brand story, we're talking about something that produces feeling and transforms our prospect, our client, our customer, our employee, our staff. right? When we tell a brand story, we are connecting feeling and transformation to move someone, to engage them, to enroll them in an idea. Now, in the business world, which most of us are here because we have a business, we have a brand, we have something we're selling, we have something that we want to what? Make money with. We have to pay attention to this key thing. One is we talk about the big V. If you haven't gone through that training, make sure you go back a week or two and go through that training. But the big V is brand values, right? The feeling. But we have this little v, right? The little v, which is business value. The functions, the features, all the things, the utility of what it is that you do, right? So we have brand value. When you have brand, right, feeling, and now you have facts, functions, and features, utility. The problem is you got to combine both of them in the business world where they overlap, where you tell a story that connects what? Feeling and emotion to create brand to a business value proposition, the little v. So brand values multiply business value. Now, we went over this last week, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but there are 3 stories that are part of the brand story. The founder story, meaning you, your story, why you are a relevant guide, why you understand someone's world, why you are somebody they should be listening to. Now, we were talking to a financial services firm yesterday about doing some work, and one of the questions was, well, my people, my staff, my employees, my advisors aren't founders. So how do they tell their personal story? Well, you, whoever you are, when you sit down in front of someone or you're talking to them, you want to be a credible person, right? You want to be able to say, I've been where you have been. I understand your world. Let me tell you something about where I've been, which then qualifies and creates empathy and connection because of your founder story. So that's the story that we tell. Another story is our customer story. Our customer story is basically the story we tell that conveys the value of our product, our widget, our service, right? What service we provide. All right, let me roll these sleeves up. And our last story is our mission story. It's what we stand for in the world. What is our mission? What do we stand for? Our mission, right? What flag are you planting in the ground and you saying, you know what, this is what I stand for. This is what we're fighting for. Now, if you go back to the training real quick, this is past, this is present, and the mission story is, of course, future. So these are your stable stories. The stories you tell about you as a founder and a guide, the story you tell about your customers and how you transform lives in the present, and the future story, your mission story, on how and what you stand for, why the world is a better place because you exist. This is the basic idea of building a brand and telling stories around it. But let's connect it to selling. Here it is. Here's the magic in all of that. If we go forward, let's fill this in real quick. Try to do it with me. We're trying to learn what goes over here. What is selling? Remember, we had brand. Well, selling is about feeling as well, emotion. That story is about transformation, right? Transformation. What 3 stories do we have? Same exact 3 stories. Founder. What's this one? Customer. And we have the mission story. Oh. These stories are told in a selling situation, but they're slightly different. The difference between the brand story, which are stable stories, you create them, you craft them, you practice, drill, rehearse them, you promote and push them via your content, podcasts, videos, blog posts, postcards, whatever you do, you're marketing those stories. In a selling situation, the stories are dynamic. The stories are evolving and changing. The stories are mixed and matched for effect. And I'll give you an example here. Same financial services firm that I'm on the phone with. First thing I do before I launch into my stories is to ask questions. What is the objective? What are you trying to accomplish? What are you all about? Why isn't it working? What do you think you need? 3 months from now, how would life be different if we're successful? I'm asking these questions. Why? Why am I asking questions? And here it is. This is what story selling comes down to. It comes down to having the right ingredients. If you're taking notes, this is what you need. You need the right ingredients to tell the perfect story. You see, when we go back, if we go back to the brand story, these stories aren't dynamic. We're pushing these into the market, and hopefully they're resonating. But when we get to the selling story, we need to collect the ingredients first so that we as chefs can cook up the perfect meal, the perfect story. So going back yesterday, talking to a brilliant young man who is leading a company, national company, been around for 100 years. And his chapter, his division, his shop, they went from 40th in the nation before he got there to 4th. They are crushing it. And he wants to take it even further. With a staff of 40 plus people, agents everywhere, he wants to crush it. So I'm like, listen, he told me like as a founder, what he stands for. I got that. I understood that. I understood what the issue or challenge was with his customers, meaning he needs a way to train his agents to become better storytellers, to connect and resonate, because it's very hard for financial services firms to stand out. They're seen as commodities at this point in time. So his agents need that upper hand. They need a way to connect fast, to create trust, likability, and connection, TLC, right? And his mission, because he's not like all the other financial services firms, he really cares, right? All the stuff he was talking about. I got all the ingredients to tell the perfect story. You see, we do sales, we do brand, we do marketing, we do development, we do a dozen different things at Leisure Story. But he was telling me what he needed, what he wanted. I didn't launch into my pitch. I asked the questions to get the ingredients to tell the perfect story. So when I went to tell my founder story, I was like, I definitely understand that. You know, I've been in that place where you know, I could be the best in the room at something. But if I don't know how to connect with people and to tell a story that makes them feel like I've been there, I've done that I have value, they don't listen. And it can be highly frustrating. Because just like you said, in your industry, it's very hard to make tenure in the financial services firm, in the book of business. It's brutal. Young agents are crushed time and time again because they don't have the training and they don't have the support to make it long enough in this business. And I can see them like, yeah, man, you know exactly what I'm going through. I was telling him about my story and how I empathize and connect. And I said, listen, I got to tell him how we transform customers. You know, truth is, we've worked with another financial services firm, a big multinational firm, and I named it in the work we did. And I said, you're right. They operate this way, and I think I'm going to challenge you to change your perspective, because he believed there was no way to stand out in the crowd, that it was going to come down to his agents being able to sell. So I said, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you. One of the things you want to do in your customer story is to change the paradigm, right? He thought he couldn't differentiate. I said, listen, we worked with this firm to create a very unique, special, and precise brand story that differentiated the brand. And then we combined it with selling. And that was the 1-2 punch that allowed them to create this new organization under a national umbrella and crush it. And he was like, really? I didn't think about that. I was like, listen, because look, you stand for something. This is what you want to do in the world. And if you're training and you're building culture this way, oh my God, you need to be telling that story, because that will differentiate you. And he's like, wow, that's right. In other words, the key thing with selling with story is making sure that you get the right ingredients. There was no selling. I was telling stories. My story and how I can empathize and connect, because I've been there. The customer stories that are relevant to him, his needs, his desires, right? His fears, his apprehensions, and then challenging him to say, we have a special sauce that you never probably considered that could actually give you the upper hand. And by the way, what you stand for, right, is the same thing that we're standing for. I want to help you to make that impact. You're different, we're different. So what does he say next? X, what's next? How do we go forward? Like I'm excited about this. I didn't whip out my book and say, hey, you ready to buy? You got your credit card? What card are you going to use? He asked, right? So that's the key thing with story selling. The key thing, if you take anything away from this, is getting the right ingredients. You got to ask the questions, and then you need to have story inventory. This is what we work on with sales team. You have to have a story inventory that allows you to be flexible in the stories that you tell. Now, this is story selling, and we train teams on this all the time, right? From senior staff to junior staff, giving them the capacity to tell great stories. And what I want to do for you today is to give you a bonus in this training by going over the 4 parts to telling a great story. Here it is. Here it is. The 4 parts of telling a great story. We have, of course, we talked about it, your founder story. We have your customer story, right? And you have your mission story, right? Those 3 stories. There are 4 parts to telling all 3 of these stories, and they all line up. Here it is. First, number 1, what do we need? We need to make sure that we understand the problems and pain that are associated with the customer and what they're going through. You need to understand that. What are the problems and pain that you can connect with as a founder? Every great story has problems and pain. Every great story, customer story, has problems and pain. Every mission story has problems and pain. We got to understand what that is for our target market. That's why we're asking the question, what's going on? What have you experienced? Right? Really? Tell me about that. What's working? What's not working? Oh, what do you think's the problem? How long have you been doing that? Right? I'm getting the ingredients. I'm asking the questions so I can understand and appreciate their world. The stories aren't about you, by the way. They're about aligning with the client or customer. Number 2, you need to understand the paradigm. This is big. What paradigm does the customer or the prospect think through? What lens do they see the world through? Do you understand it? Because one of the things about selling is you have to first align with that, and then you have to destroy that paradigm and then rebuild it. Rebuild it, right? You align, destroy, rebuild. We teach teams how to do that through the power of story, right? I understand that. I've been there, but there's a different way to consider this through a story. Not saying, no, you're wrong. Think this way. There's a different way of considering that. And then we rebuild that paradigm, that story. Okay? No. Right? Then, number 3, power. You got to understand the steps to move something forward. What is the power, right? The steps that you need to move something forward. Right? Power is basically the steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. What are we going to do? We're going to do this, 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 this. The steps in a very chronological, simple, and easy way. Right? That's the 3rd part to a great story. And if you don't understand this, I'm going to give you opportunity to dive deeper into this after this training. The 4th is pleasure. What is the pleasurable outcome? Can you sell the idea or tell a story about how life will be different because you exist? Can you do that? This is the basic framework for telling a great story every single time. But you got to have what I call, what we talked about here, you got to have story inventory. You got to have some cooked up meals that you can go to time and time again, but you can mix and match them and effortlessly go in and out of these stories to connect and all of the things that go along with that. Here, give me the phone. See, this is the thing about being home. You know I'm live, right? Yeah, I'm live. All right, so, this is the 4 parts of the story, and I'm going to give you opportunity to dig deeper into it. But before we go to that, I want you to understand that I had to learn this the hard way myself too. Trying to be a hardcore closer. Buy, facts, function, features, fact, function, features. It wasn't until I absolutely had to close. There was this big deal on the table. We had just moved. My wife is in the military, as many of you know, and we move every 2 years. So I was in this whole build a brand, destroy a brand, build a brand, destroy a brand cycle. And it's always like, feast, famine and feast, right? Feast and famine. So I would build something after 2 years, crushing it, and then have to move. And I didn't build like a brand outside of the local region. So we had moved. So now I was like 4 months in, no income, just like, feeling it. And I had a big opportunity, I think the deal was like 60 grand. And I had to close it. I had to. And like every other deal before, I was an unknown commodity, right? I didn't have a brand, I didn't have a rep, I didn't have a reputation in this particular town. So she didn't trust me. So when it came to signing, though I said all the right things, she was like, I don't know. You know, you have to chase somebody back and forth, over and over and over again. That was me. But I had to close, y'all. So we were sitting down in our office, and I just was like, listen, I don't know what's holding you back, but let me tell you something about me. And then I went into my story about getting into a cage and becoming a professional fighter. And I had to overcome my fears. I had to figure out what I was fighting for, why I was there. And it was the scariest thing in the world, but it was the most transformational experience, right? I told her that story through, quite literally a story. And then I said, I don't know what you're fighting for, but it doesn't look like you know either. And she broke down and started crying. 10 minutes later, she signed the deal. And I was like, whoa, when you come raw with it and you tell the story that I didn't know this model back then. I didn't know that model. This was just me telling this story of why you should trust, like, and connect with me, TLC, right? I didn't know this model, but that's the power of sharing story, right? Story is a vehicle that can quickly connect you to your target market and those that you're trying to build rapport with. In a closing situation, in a selling situation, even building brand and being a powerful communicator, story is it. Now, one of the things that many of us, when we're going through this and I'm training on this, is we say, I can't do that. I'm not X. I beg to differ. Story is not about being polished. It is just about being able to open your mouth and tell quite literally a story. I had another client, and she by no means is a fast talker, right? A master communicator, and she was like, I can't do this. So what we did was, I pushed her, of course. We created an event. She got a whole bunch of people into it, and she shared her story. This is why I do what I do. This is what inspires me. This is what moves me. Then she went into her normal everyday. She was a web developer. This is what we do. This is what we do for building brands. And then she had a high ticket item at the end of her session. And at the break, she was like, I don't want to disclose. I don't. She was nervous. I was like, listen, you already told your story. I want you to pick somebody in the room, one person in the room. And I want you to tell a client story who matches that person. And I want you to create eye contact with her and her alone, because it was all women in the room. She did that, right? It was like she was talking to her. She was like, and I don't remember the story, but all I know was 2 of the women in there were like crying, and she was stumbling, she was stuttering, she was nervous herself, telling this story. Everybody in the room signed up. She made more money that one day from that one event than she had made in 6 months. And the only difference was she told her story. She didn't even get to the mission story, and she told a customer story. And here's why it works. Because when someone can see themselves inside of your story, that's when they believe. That's when they get excited about what comes next. So you don't have to learn a type of high pressure closing. You don't have to learn a whole bunch of overcoming objections. You don't have to do all that. You just have to tell a good story, a story that aligns with your customer. And in a selling situation, you can get the ingredients because you can ask the questions. In a branding situation, if we go back, we can't necessarily ask every single individual what they want to hear, but we see the data. We know what the market is thinking. So we can intercept the narrative. This is called intercepting the narrative. When we can intercept the narrative, I know I write like a kindergartner. When we intercept the narrative, we can tell the right stories. But the great thing about a sales situation, which makes it far easier, far easier in a selling situation is that we can ask. This is your key weapon in selling. Ask. Don't assume. Give them the opportunity to tell you. To tell you. People want to be listened to. People want to share their story. People want to engage. Ask. Right? You should be talking 20% of the time, not 80% in a selling situation. But when you ask, you're asking to uncover the ingredients so that you, as a master storyteller, can cook up the perfect meal. All right? So let's go forward. How do you take this further? Right? You're like, hey, X, I want to be able to do this with my staff, my team. I want to be able to train on this. I want to give you the opportunity to do this. We're going to be setting up some virtual trainings on this for individuals, solopreneurs, and entrepreneurs. We also are going to start really pushing working with teams. So if your team has to get on the phone, has to connect with people, and be able to close deals, you got to get into this training. 347% more clients or better closing rates by telling story. We can train you, your staff, to be able to do that. So to learn more about that and to get on the phone and talk about how we can help you to close more deals, text the word close. Text the word close to 800-425-2095. When you text to the word close to 800-425-2095, you'll get a link to my calendar. We'll set up a time to talk. We'll talk about your situation, where you are, and how we might be able to help you. Listen, there's no glory in suffering. There's no glory in trying to figure it out. There's no glory in knocking your head up against a wall. And there's definitely no glory saying, I don't like to sell, so I'm not going to get on the phone. I'm not going to connect with people. I'm not going to be a closer, right? Right? Yes, you got to close, but you can do it in a way that aligns with you and is natural for you and the customer. So I want to teach you how to do just that. And by the way, when you go over this, one of the issues that a lot of people have is they say, well, I'm not getting on the phone. I don't have opportunities to get on the phone. I don't have a lot of opportunities to close people because I'm not attracting people to me. Well, here's the brilliant part about story selling, if I can get it to work. Go back, I say. But here's the brilliant thing about story selling. You remember what I talked about here? Where we talked about the idea of these stories, the founder story, customer story, and the mission story, and having your story inventory? Well, when we start talking about brand story, we're talking about attracting customers. But when we're going over your story inventory, guess what you'll have? You'll have the right stories to tell in the marketplace, right? You'll have the right things to start communicating to people with, because we're going to build up your story inventory, which will allow you to be a better marketer too, right? Even though we're implicitly or explicitly working on selling, when you go through that process, you will know what stories to tell, what messaging to have, how to attract people to you with the stories that we're helping you to craft, to practice, drill, and rehearse. So yes, you can tell a hellified story. You can improve your sales by 347% or more, because we've seen it happen. And yes, even you can tell a great story with the right ingredients. And we're going to show you how to do just that. And it starts with just texting me, 800-425-2095, put in the word close, and we'll go on the phone and we'll talk about it. And you already have my promise, I'm not a hardcore closer anymore. We're going to just talk story, right? All right, so listen, I appreciate everybody being here. Definitely make sure you type that keyword in close and text me, 800-425-2095. I'm going to prioritize the first 10 people who send out the text message to get on my calendar and to get this new special we have on training around it. Look, if you want to close more deals, you got to be in that training. We're going to be working on your stories, your story inventory, the whole process to help you become a better closer with story. All right, and a couple more announcements here. Next week, we're going to be talking about how to get powerful client testimonies and stories. We've been doing a lot of marketing in the back end and reaching out to people. And one of the ways in which we're creating an instantaneous relationship is saying, hey, we went to your website and you don't have any client stories. Or you have 2 lines at the bottom of a page and you're calling that a client story. Listen, when we go somewhere, one of the first things we're looking for is what? What do others say? And if those stories are weak, whack, or just non-existent, we're leaving a lot on the table. So next week, we're going to talk about our process for getting great client testimonies and putting together powerful stories that when people listen to them, they go, whoa, I got to have that. I want that because that customer said it. Not you. You got to have your stories. We're talking about that as well. But you got to also have great customer stories that come from the horse's mouth, not your mouth. So next week's Whiteboard Fire, we're going to be going over that. So if you want to get on the schedule, type same number, 800-425-2095. Type in the word live so you can get the time and date. I don't know when we're going live next week with that one, but that should be a popular one for people because so many of us, we just don't have powerful client stories on the table. So if you want to check that out, text me or go to my website, asaniX.com, and you can get the schedule updated there. And last but not least, I have a podcast. It's new. I think we ran through our first 23 or 24 episodes, but we'll start coming out almost every 3 days or so, maybe twice a week, new episodes of The Yellow Chair. If you want to learn the personal game of story, how to maximize your performance, how to get out there and tap into your highest potential, then check out The Yellow Chair. I promise you. So you can find it on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever. Type in Yellow Chair. You'll see my picture. Make sure you subscribe, and then drop a review, right? Tell me what you think. All right? And that's today's Whiteboard Fire. You got to sell it with story. 347% more clients without the high pressure closing. All you got to do is text me, right? Text me and close to the word 800-425-2095, and you'll get in on or learn more about the training we have set up to help people just like you. All right? I'm X, and I'm out.